I am Sarah. I am the marketing and sales director at Deep Vellum Publishing. So while that looked like one thing during the quarantine, it looks like something completely different. So while prior to quarantine, that it was a lot of doing events in person, we had a lot of sort of in-person participation things. We were all working in an office, and now it's totally from my computer, and I'm currently sitting in my room. So I'm super thrilled to start our virtual programming. Pretty much, this is one of our first events. We're getting on the roll with Riso Bar, which is a project and a space of collective learning and skill building housed in the SMU Pollock Gallery. I'm so excited to have these folks here today. We have Milan, we have Elizabeth, we have Finn, and we have May, who are all going to be conversing with me about, about the process of Rizzo printing, about its role in society and community building, and about its role in the activist world. So I'm super excited. If y'all would like to start, Milan and Finn and May and Elizabeth, by talking a little bit about how this project came to fruition, I would love to hear how that happened and what y'all's roles are.
Sure. Maybe we can do it like we each say a sentence because it unfolded kind of like that. So we're a group, and there are people in the group who aren't here. It's a core group, but it could grow, and it is larger than this. And say our role in this started just exploring how to build a press in Dallas, and if that was something that could exist here. And we had that conversation largely with Sophia Bastidas, who's the director of the Pollock Gallery. And particularly we were interested in Rizzo because we had some sense that it was cheap and easy to use. And easy to use is a big disclaimer for that, which we can talk about later. But we actually did a road trip. We went to Houston and we visited 2 awesome presses there, Rizzo presses specifically. And the reason why we went to Houston is because we didn't know there was anyone working in Rizzo in Dallas. And then as soon as we got back, Sophia met Milan and Taro, who have been working with Rizzo for a long time and are amazing master printers. And then I'll let someone else take over for how it unfolded further.
Okay, so from my end, Taro and I had been interested in risograph printing for quite some time. Taro has a screen printing background. I studied illustration in my undergrad at Otis, and I was a letterpress tech there, and also did some screen printing. And so when we started seeing in illustration circles that people were using this risograph printing, which was giving a lot of similar effects to screen printing, but was done with these Japanese copy machines, we were really interested in the process and in wanting to make things with it. Right after me and Taro got married, we moved to Japan, and that's where we were first able to work with Rizzo. There were some Rizzo studios there that we worked with on making some prints. And after that, we were pretty much hooked onto the process, especially because of how the overlapping design work goes so well with the way you think about designing for screen printing. So when we got back from Japan about 3 years ago, we were doing a residency with Central Track, the UTD artist residency, to put on a show called the Zine Society Library. And for that show, we got our first risograph printer in order to do workshops there. And we also gathered zines from a lot of people and had like this zine library that people could go through, which also, Riso Bar has a similar library, but the one we had before was not just focused on Rizzo prints. The one at Riso Bar is all just a Rizzo print library and Rizzo zine library, which is really, for me, one of the most exciting parts of this project is compiling and seeing these beautiful risograph printed materials and having those be accessible to other people to be inspired by. But yeah, so last year I entered the MFA program at SMU, which is how I met Sophia. And that is how we got in touch about, I was like, yeah, actually Annalise told me Sophia was looking to print Rizzo. And I was like, I have 2 machines in my living room and we've just been printing, you know, our own personal projects. So let's make this thing happen. And that's when we had a meeting with Finn and May at Small Brew to talk about shared goals and what they were envisioning for the project, which I just remembered after our meeting last time that it was, you guys were talking about setting up a print shop, but also like really Dallas-based projects, that there were not very many people that were using sort of these kind of platforms to promote Dallas-based things. So I think this project has been really successful in doing that. But yeah, so me and Taro came in, brought our machine over to the Pollock Gallery, and we've been printing and having fun ever since with this Riso Bar project.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so y'all started around this past January. Is that when this began?
Yeah, I think it would actually be really helpful if Sumi is willing to talk about how they got involved in this project, because that's one more aspect too, before we launch in, if you're willing.
I mean, mine's short and sweet. I was just kind of behind the scenes for everything, like learning about the press, because I helped facilitate the Pollock Gallery, so just learning the logistics of it. But I became really fascinated with how just everything translates into Rizzo, and like it's such a magical process, and like everything looks so beautiful. And but yeah, I guess I joined a lot later. I joined the team later, and I started pursuing projects later on in the project. But yeah.
Yeah, and Sumi, Finn, and I didn't previously know how to print on Rizzo. It was really through Milan and Taro's example that we learned how to use the machine. And at least for us, you know, we were really excited on what we thought Rizzo meant to us, and that's kind of what drove our interest in learning the physical aspect.
That's awesome. Yeah, because Rizzo is something that is so physical, I'm super curious to hear your points of view in terms of being in Dallas. Like, what is it? I know, Milan, you just talked about this a little bit, but I would love to hear a little bit more from everybody. It's just like, why Dallas for this project? And what has the response been in the city so far?
I have something.
Awesome.
Well, I'll say, at least for me, one idea behind Riso Bar, and this is changing. You were talking about this, trying to do development over Zoom is very different. And one aspect of the bar where we are now, we can kind of show you in a low tech way. It's like we're in the bar right now. It's a really small room. This is our library. Little library that rotates around. There are these beautiful tables that an SMU grad Brandon made. And then here's our machine. Our machine is here. And even though it's small, you know, one of the things we were really interested in is it being a place where people would come hang out at the bar. That's kind of, the bar idea came from us being in this room and saying, like, we wish we could get a drink together right now. And we're like, what if Riso Bar is a bar? I mean, it wasn't called Riso Bar yet. That's how bar became. It was like Rizzo show or something. And just like this idea that there's so few places in Dallas that we felt you can hang out and not necessarily spend money. And I think that even though we can't really hang out right now, and we have to think about what's a way for this space and mission to be accessible to people, just the idea of what does a project look like that is non-commercial in its core and spirit. So
yeah, totally.
I feel like when I came onto the project, Sophia, Finn, and May made it clear that it was going to be a Dallas-based focus. And there's been a few projects that Sumi did and that we've done that I think really exemplify that. For me, it's really important. So I was born in Oak Cliff. I grew up in Dallas, but I went to school in LA, came back, went and lived in Japan a while and came back. So for me, I feel like I've been really lucky to foster this community of really amazing, talented, and sweet artists, people in Dallas who like support my practice and support each other's practice. And I think that a big important thing for me in participating in projects like this and making sure to highlight Dallas voices and Dallas topics in what we're doing is that if we don't have these kind of things available for artists, we don't have the kind of cool print making options that we want to see and want to use. That's why people move to like New York and LA all the time. And it's hard to like make that community sustainable in places like Dallas. We don't, as people who like live and make artwork in Dallas, we don't want to see like all the other people that we want to work with be like, I'm going to Houston, I'm going to LA, I'm going to New York. You know, I mean, we have friends and printmakers who also, you know, live in those places. And like, I think the communities and the vibes there are great, but like to make something here where you're from that reflects the things that are important here and that builds that community further here, I think is like very important to the enrichment of like the arts community that can happen and needs to happen in Dallas.
Right.
So I feel very honored to be part of projects that do that.
So sorry, go ahead.
Go, Sumi.
Okay. Well, I don't know, my fascination with Rizzo stemmed from like memes, hence the meme exhibition, because I liked that Rizzo kind of is like low cost and you can produce so many to make it widely available to people in the same way that memes are widely available to people. So it kind of eliminates like the hierarchy like within like the art itself. And so I don't know, like once I started running things through Rizzo, like I wanted to run everything through it, like not just like fine arts, not just like text, like, and so I started running like memes through it and I was like, this looks amazing. Like it makes it like extra crispy, like, you know, the like deep fried memes and like you could like heighten that on there. And so I thought it was a good way to not only like promote Dallas artists, but also expose Dallas to like different artists that you might not regularly see. So like I reached out to Adult Swim's like bottom text. And so like, because it's relatively low cost and we can send everything like digitally and like just physically print it here, like it was able to manifest in the way it did. And I was kind of thinking in the same way as far as like protests were going, because the whole thing with memes is like the force lies in like how many people, like the repetition of it and like encouraging the users to like alter it to like their own needs, right? And so like by widely distributing these like protest posters that could be like made really, really quickly, like making a bunch of them, and then to widely like spread these throughout protests and to see this sign like over and over and over again was really interesting. But that's kind of where that stems from.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting too to talk about the roles that these have in terms of, both of these have in terms of memes and like solely like internet specific, mostly internet specific imagery, and risograph is something that's so physical and not internet, so to speak, but to be able to have them cross over when it comes to the idea of decentralization. I think that's really interesting to me, and that's something that I'm interested in at Deep Vellum as well. I mean, I think that Will Evans, the publisher and founder, and myself have this very much in common, wherein we're interested in creating a project that isn't reliant on a centralized publishing industry. And obviously for us, that comes in the form of publishing like novels and translated novels. And so these are like bringing works from across the world into Dallas and then back out into the world as well. But I mean, it's just every single part of the process. If we can make things like this that much more decentralized and therefore that much more accessible to a variety of communities, that's just like totally changes the game and is absolutely what we need to be doing in a digital age. So I love it. I would love if y'all could talk a little bit more too, thinking about like the idea of memes and thinking about the sharing of concepts in a sort of activist space. There's definitely, I'm not an expert as nearly as much as any of y'all are, but in my knowledge, there seems like there's such a strong relationship between independent presses and printers and activism, especially during historic times of unrest. And I think a time in which this came hugely into the public eye was even like with Obama's iconic campaign poster that was mimicking the history of politics intersection with Rizzo and the printing arts. But I mean, that just speaks to like decades and decades and decades of these intersections. So considering, you know, all of that, I was wondering if y'all could start to talk a little bit more about like the role the Riso Bar and Rizzo has had with like activist spaces and how y'all have echoed that.
Yeah, I think a few projects really come to mind with that. Definitely the survival handbooks that Finn and May have been working on. Also the protest posters that we were able to print and pass out during the protests.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like also focusing on certain things like having translation be part of the prints that we make and how that is a form of activism and protest within itself, to have things that are more accessible, or finding for example, for me, it's really important in some of the projects that I have lined up for the future to really focus on women of color illustrators in the area and beyond, and make print sets with them, because it's a voice that I see reflected in myself and that I want to see more of in the community. So I think that, you know, in general, zine making has like a very political and activist sort of history and tendency from the beginning, in that it's a cheap way to get your message in the hands of a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that's definitely ingrained in this project, you know, and that's something that by thinking carefully about the kind of projects we want to pursue and the kind of workshops we want to do and things we want to see coming out of the press, it's definitely something that has the power to get these messages that we see important out to a larger public. Yeah.
And to go off of that, like I think presses are really active right now because like Rizzo is one of those things that it can respond very quickly and have really big impact like very quickly. And I think that's why like everyone's been churning out work like so fast, because like just because the process allows for that. And also like I don't know, as far as like thinking about like the real estate space of like our social media and like how we've called to question like what does it mean that like we're putting certain things like in that space. And so just in the same way as we're like amplifying Black voices like in our social media and like resources and stuff like that, I started thinking about the real estate of like our bodies and our presence like at these protests, and like by I don't know, by like filling those spaces with like these protest signs, I was trying to like mirror, you know, like what we're doing on social media, like on that scale. But yeah.
And I think Milan has said this before. Did you want to say something?
No, no, no.
Oh, Milan has said this before, which I really like, which is that I think like the projects we've done have all been, and we're not all necessarily working on projects at the same time, which may be helpful to hear about our structure, but we work on different projects and negotiate using the space. Like we have a calendar, and at this time we're trying to make it only 2 people at a time going in, and it's really been like, it's still a labor. And so you know, we've each just naturally focused on what has been important to us at this time. And I think like, because we are a group, you see many expressions of that. Like for me, you know, we were doing this project called Survival School that is still happening and that is going to be available at Deep Vellum bookstore, where we invited different people from Dallas to share one task or method of doing something. And Sumi beautifully illustrated those. And they're just one page, one sheet folded up. But, you know, for example, we invited Break Bread, Break Borders to do a recipe for us because they do amazing cooking and catering services. And that recipe was in Arabic, which is a language that I grew up with. And so it was really, you know, it's not random, like, you know, and so, you know, they translated it, but I also got to work with my mom to edit it. And in that way, you know, it was something that was hyper local to Dallas, but also something that was personal for me to be working on. And I think we've each had different things like that. And now the question is, you know, we wanted this space to be accessible and able to be used by everyone. And now it's just us 5 or 6. So how do we make that transition, you know, and we're still figuring out what that looks like.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think Sumi's kind of word about, or phrase about real estate is like really crucial here. Like in relation to, you know, us printing these posters to distribute at the protest or something like that. I think, at least myself, but I think other members were also thinking about in terms of, we have access to certain resources as a kind of print space. Like we are lucky that we have this space. We're not kind of in danger of losing this space because we have this arrangement with SMU that we're very thankful for, and we're able to kind of be working. And at least for myself, I feel like there is some kind of onus when you have access to resources in that way. It's like, that's the role that you have to play, whether you're doing other things, you know, on your own time as well. But the role that the institution can play is like, how can we, you know, make as much of an impact as possible, you know, with what we have. And luckily we can kind of do that because you can print so many, you know, that's the beauty of Rizzo. You can print so many things, and then you have this kind of material support that you can provide. Yeah.
That's really excellent. Yeah, I definitely, I think it's kind of funny in one way to ask y'all to talk about a process that's so physical and like about such a community-based project once we're in the middle of a pandemic and like quarantined separately and often unable to congregate in like normal and social ways. But on the other hand, I feel like y'all are amazing example of the creative solutions that a community-based project that's really coming from multiple minds and multiple creative people, y'all are a great example of what that can be in a time like this. I mean, with the protest posters, with creating not just creating work during, you know, a time of COVID, not just pumping out work, but really tailoring it to be specifically helpful and thoughtful. it's so fantastic, and I'm so grateful that y'all are a part of this, basically.
Thank you.
I love it. I love y'all. I would love to pivot, take that, and think about your work with an archive in a sense. So in addition to printing these posters and talking about how fast this process is and how you can respond really quickly, in addition, one of your regular components is the zine library that you just showed behind you, Finn and May. So I want to hear more about the library. I want to hear about what you've included, what y'all have seen there. You know, I would love to hear more about that facet of the project in general.
Sure. Well, Sumi, do you want to talk about it a little?
The library?
Yeah. You can say no.
I don't think I know the extent that you guys do, but I don't know. Like before everything shut down, it was just this library available to everyone to come see, and it's a lot of this like experimental work by artists like from everywhere that is probably harder to like have access to for like the regular person to like get to see all these things, but also just like seeing all the different methods of printing that's like even possible with like Rizzo. But having that available like during workshops and stuff was really beautiful, and some people would just come in to just like browse around and read while they drink juice and stuff.
Yeah. And I'll do a quick plug for Recipe Oak Cliff. It's an amazing juice business and vegan business in Oak Cliff that's really amazing, and I can't say how amazing it is enough. But we had sort of partnered with them and had their juices available here, and it was really that's how we were like, okay, it's a bar, but how do we make it a bar? Actually, a bar. No, but it's really great to have that component. But for the library, I'm sorry I put you on the spot. But yeah, so we worked with SMU to put together a list it's an ongoing list because the exhibition was supposed to close at the end of this year, but it's actually going to be extended for until May 2021. But still, there's still a lot of question marks about what that, as you can imagine. But at the conclusion of this exhibition, those works will become a part of the permanent collection of the Hammond Art Library, which is cool too, that there will be this significant zine collection at a research institution, which is, I feel excited about that. And then there are plenty of things that are just from Milan and Taro's personal collection and a few things from our collection. And I think, again, like with the projects in the selection process was like, we really want these texts here. And a lot of the reasoning behind that is because it was our various interests. There's a lot from many different countries, and within the group, we speak several different languages. And so there are a lot that are not in English too. And I think that's just came out of our interests.
Yeah, and I'll just add that I think May was mentioning that we kind of began the project with a low level of skill around the actual process of printing. And at least for myself, I definitely came at it more as like being in awe of the work that I was seeing, and almost like we were like finding things and being like, we want to make it like this.
How did they do that?
How did they do that? So we visited Mystic Multiples in Houston and the Center for Imaginative Cartography and Research also in Houston. And we kind of were thinking about ways that we could showcase the work of other people, and just like reflecting on the fact that that's a main source of inspiration, is to see something really amazing and kind of get working to do your own thing or get to that level. And also that once you start printing, like I've definitely had this experience, once you start printing, you realize how hard it is, and that like something that you as a kind of normal consumer of like reading a book or something don't think that it's that impressive necessarily, or that kind of labor is easy to overlook. You really start looking with a different eye and saying, wow, 4 colors, that's a lot of work. 4 colors is like, wow. So it's kind of, it came from that desire, I think, to just have this kind of source of inspiration constantly. And that's why back in the day when we were thinking that this would be, you know, people would be visiting all the time, we were going to be cycling through with our different works and kind of trying to keep it like exciting and, you know, responding to what people wanted to see, and also hopefully inspiring them to get creating in their own way, and also just placing ourselves within, you know, in relation to the printers in Houston or the printers in Austin and the printers across the United States and across the world who are like interested in the same things as us. So we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
We also, like, in the physical collection, keep like all the things that were printed at our particular Rizzo shop.
Yeah.
So you get to see what else has been like produced in the time period and be inspired by what's happening like in your own city, which has been so to see.
That's amazing. I was wondering if y'all would be able to show us some of your favorite zines off the rack behind you, or at least point a couple out.
Yeah. So many.
May has some. May has
Okay. Wow.
It's
there's
like,
so
it's
many.
like, how can
Okay.
we?
Brie, the red one.
Which one?
We don't know where the Brie is, right? I think
It's
right
in.
now.
So we have been rotating them around here, even though it's just for us, just to pretend that the exhibition is on view now. This is a great publication that Milan illustrated. That's so beautiful.
Oh,
And it's a real life person that I can be obsessed with, that I know where she lives, and which is cool. This is a publication that this press is from Puerto Rico.
Yeah, La Impresora.
I think we all were really into this one because it already in its form is challenging what a book is. So you open it up and actually it's a series of cards. And I think basically since we all have seen this, we've all tried to do something like this, or are all trying to do something like this. We're like, how did they make it fold? Like, it's actually really hard to fold things.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to show Mystic Multiples?
Yeah. This is one of the first presses that I ever visited and was exposed to, and it's Mystic Multiples, and all of this series of stories take place in Houston, and this work really made an impact on me in thinking of what it means to create images of a city where there are not many images of it. And with Dallas, I don't think there are that many images of the city, or that aren't just like ads to visit, or I guess there's the TV show, but really like there are not contemporary images. And I was just so struck by how there was really like a mise-en-scène that was created with the green and with illustrations of cockroaches and of rain that really made me feel like I'm from Houston, which I'm not.
And shout out to Sarah Welch, the illustrator and writer of all those beautiful publications, and her lovely husband, James, who's an amazing printmaker, both in screen printing and risograph printing. They're dear friends, and we've worked with them on projects like Houston Zine Fest, which Taro helps with the website on, and we've loved the times we've been able to participate in Houston Zine Fest, and look forward to when that'll be opening up again or taking an online form or whatever that's going to become. But yeah, Sarah and James and Mystic Multiples are lovely resources for information about Rizzo for sure.
Yeah. And then this book is amazing. No Magic in Rizzo. It, without getting too much into like, Spark Notes of Rizzo is that it prints one layer at a time. And I'm not even going to say the most technological version, but prints one layer of color at a time. And so to produce interactions between colors, it's a process of layering. And so this book has different studies of all different kinds of color interactions.
Wow.
That they did that are really incredible.
Yeah, and this is made by a studio in Taipei called OO.O or O.OO.
O.OO. It's hard to get straight. Here are some like the interactions. And then I will say that they're not all up, but Finn has done a really good job of putting them up on our website, risobar.net.
Because I'm realizing this is probably not the best lighting to see things. So on our website, there's a tab that says library, and that has links to all of these books that we've bought where you can buy them yourself and just see nice pictures of them. Because when we started doing the library, I think one
People
thing
were
that
like, can we buy them from
everyone
you?
wanted it to be a store too, where they were like trying to buy things, which is, I guess, often how you encounter these kind of things, like if you're at a zine fest or something. But yeah, risobar.net has all the links to our library things.
Yeah.
Do you want to show this one? Or do you want to pick another one?
Up to you.
It's up to you. I really like this.
Collaboration at work.
We always are so nice to each other.
So sweet.
That's rule number one. But anyway, so this is a great, this is one of the first things we knew we wanted to buy. It's called Presidents and Beauty Queens by Pam Butler, who's a wonderful artist that works in a variety of media, but had this kind of Rizzo printed spiral bound book that has images of, I mean, the title is kind of self-explanatory. It's Presidents and Beauty Queens, and kind of just thinking about that imagery. And I just really think it's beautiful and a kind of great example of a way to use, because Rizzo has this very particular look, right? Yeah. So just, I feel like Pam Butler really uses that well. And again, I know this lighting's not the best, so check it out on our website. They have, we have some good images that we took of it.
And Finn's really interested in the art. I mean, talking for him, but he's really archivally minded. We are both not illustrators at all. And so that was a different model for us to see of using 2D and even 3D materials to collage or put things together.
Right. Finn and May, do you mind showing a little bit, because a few people are having some technical questions about like, what is Rizzo and how do you set up files for Rizzo? And I was thinking, May, if you had those masters from the print you just did, if you could like show a color master, like show the masters versus the colors on this project that you're working on, because I think that would really give people an idea about how the color separation works and how this process actually looks when it's in process.
Okay, it'll just take a second to find them in the trash. Scrap, it's not trash, it's scrap.
Oh, another thing that I love that Riso Bar is doing is we're keeping a lot of our paper for recycling, and we actually take it to Tino Ward, who makes handmade paper, so that he can make handmade paper with, the beautiful Rizzo scraps that we're making.
That's amazing.
And one of the things that we would love a residency to do would be to work with Tino too. Because right now the paper he makes, the Rizzo machine can't use. It can only use certain kind of papers. But what if the paper that he makes was actually one we could then buy back from him to print onto? So that's the ideal mode that we would love to work towards. Okay, so I will show you that. Can you hold it up so we can just show the machine?
Sure.
Okay, so this is the Rizzo machine. It's not that beautiful to look at, but it's beautiful to us. This is the scanning bed. So to start, we would take some kind of...
We'll show what you're trying to do.
I will. Okay, I'll show you the finished product.
Yeah.
Finished product. Okay, so this is a 4-color print that I'm working on.
Round of applause.
Yeah, and it was my first 4-colored print, and Milan helped me. And so, it prints one color at a time. So this required 4 different layers of color to produce this composite image. And so what that looks like on the machine, we print out in black and white the image that we want to put on the scanning bed. So we put this here.
So what color is that?
This is yellow.
So this would be our yellow layer, and it's broken up tonally And so wherever it's darker, it's going to give you more yellow. And wherever it's lighter, it'll give you like a lighter yellow as it burns, scans and burns this image on the drum.
Yeah.
So show the drum.
Okay, so here's the drum.
So to change the color, you change the drum. So we have all different colors of ink. Each one it has its own drum. So this is the black ink that's in there right now. So what you do is you put in the yellow ink, and your black and white image gets scanned, and what you get out is a yellow image.
Yeah. So this was what. Lost it. It's right here. So this is what the yellow image looked like.
Wow.
Yes.
Did you physically run the same piece of paper through the Rizzo machine, in this case 4 times?
Yes, exactly.
Cool.
Beautiful, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, so this is the yellow layer. Then we did the pink layer on top. And then this was the blue layer. And then this was the final brown layer. And if I were really prepared for a demo, I would have shown you with just 2, and then with 3, and then with 4.
There's one by the computer with 2, with
Okay,
pink and
you're
with
right.
yellow. I mean, that gives you an idea.
Yeah, this is one that I messed up that will
But
actually.
it's okay.
This gives you a sense, so you want to get them aligned, otherwise it's psychedelic, which is cool when it's on purpose.
But this is 2 colors, and you can see like the beautiful gradients of orange and like different pinks that happen as the yellow and the fluorescent pink overlay. And so thinking in your design about how your colors overlay in different gradients, that really helps get the most out of your design, I feel like.
Yeah. And maybe one more design type thing as a newer user is that, and I think we can just
put it back.
Is that there is always a fraction of error or difference between the different prints, and being able to lean into that fact and make designs that work with that fact, and basically think about what it means to have imperfections and use them as a design principle, but also I think an expanded way of thinking about any kind of project.
That's so very cool. And you start to think about what kinds of things require information and design that you can run off quickly in general too. I mean, as a viewer who's not a Rizzo expert and hasn't worked with Rizzo, it's so interesting to apply that thought to these pamphlets and posters that y'all have been doing. I mean, it's really meaningful to be able to share this. Just all of these like groups that potentially don't have institutional funding and don't have the ability to work through a big publisher doing, tens of thousands or just thousands of copies of a book or of an image. It just is really meaningful to be able to have this sort of imperfect but thoughtful process. It's so fascinating as a viewer.
Thank you. Well, I can show these to you because they're in our library. We included ourselves in our library. But these are going to be available through Deep Vellum bookstores. I will do for a second. Okay, we have 4 pamphlets for now, but they're just, they're how to change a tire, which I didn't know how to do personally. I don't want to give away all the illustrations, but they're beautifully illustrated by Sumi. How to make Syrian coconut cookies. And this is in Arabic and English. How to catch up with a friend over the phone during a pandemic, possibly one of the harder tasks. And then how to make a face mask out of bed sheets. If you're a real adult and have more than 1 pair of bed sheets.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, this is a way we reach out to friends and organizations here as a way to do this project, and we hope we get to do more of it. It was funded by Ignite Arts Dallas, which really means a lot to be able, I mean, it's core to what I believe, I think others too, is like the only person I want to be doing free labor is myself. But through that, we were able to pay an honorarium to the illustrator and to the writers and a small printing fee. And the more that we can do that, the better, I think.
Do y'all have more of these coming up, or is this a complete set of pamphlets?
Complete set is supposed to be 5 with a mystery 5th one on the way. And I hope that we can do several iterations of this.
That's exciting.
The idea is for, the reason why it's a school concept is, you know, how could we draw on the collective knowledge of people in Dallas here, and share that as much as possible.
It's like a people's user guide of Dallas.
Yeah, and if, yeah, when they're all done, we'll all know everything.
I wish. Well, this sort of ties up the questions that I had for y'all. I was wondering if you have any other things that you'd like to share, or if you have any other questions for people in general who are in the audience, or for me.
I guess a comment, I think we all got kind of buff with Rizzo, like picking up the ink cartridges. Like, just side note. But
It's good for your physical
like
health.
sweating, like printing stuff out.
So funny.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a workout with the drums and the drying rack action. It's keeping us healthy mentally and physically.
So funny. It's good to be able to move around during COVID. I mean, I think I end up sitting on my chair 98% of the day. So lifting a few drums now and then doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah, we'll bring you over to lift them for us.
I would love to. I will absolutely be your drum lifter. So fun.
I'm just so shocked and happy at like everybody coming in with interest about this process and about the projects that we're doing. I always get really excited at people who have like specific questions and can relate the printmaking process to other printmaking processes. So for me, like I'm so grateful to everyone who's come in to hear us talk about this and has expressed an interest in the printmaking, and I can't wait for us to be able to open the doors to more people to enjoy the library and have some more workshops so people can come in and experience that process as well. Yeah.
Right.
And we also, so right now the context that brought us all together was this year-long exhibition at the Pollock Gallery. But even from the outset in the original press release, it stated that the purpose of the year was to work towards building and launching an extant press in Dallas. So even from then, we were always looking towards building a sustainable model. And so even though we don't know what that looks like, whoever is interested in doing that, we would love to talk to you and work with you in some way.
It's all community building all the way, which is amazing because it has a physical output, but it's also in the actions. And I think from an outside perspective, it seems like that's a lot of what draws people to Rizzo to begin with, is this sort of process-based feeling.
Totally.
Yeah.
Awesome. I don't see any other unanswered questions here, but just to tie it up from the text, regarding additional resources, they are in the comments, but I'll also be posting resources and other groups mentioned in our Facebook event and on our website. Nick, thank you so much for these comments to the Rizzo.
Passing us up. Thank you.
Very, very kind. And I absolutely agree with you. This kind of community building and outreach and networking and active participation from many, many different people is absolutely what drives us. And as a relative newcomer to the city, I am so grateful to see projects like y'all's that are making this happen. So you really rock.
Thank you. Thanks so much
for putting this
yeah.
together and inviting us to have this kind of conversation, giving us a platform to really be able to talk about what we're doing. I mean, we're really grateful at the chance to have these kind of talks, you know.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to do it again at any point. So if y'all don't have any other questions, I will go ahead and just give a little bit more information before we sign off.
Yeah, please.
Awesome. Okay, so a large part of the reason for this process is because we are working towards printing chapbooks this fall through Deep Vellum Publishing, featuring 3 Dallas poets. This is a project that we did last year as well, and featured Fatima Ayan Malika Hirsi. We featured Erika Chilome, and we featured Mike Soto to construct chapbook length works and represent the city of Dallas in short run chapbooks, which is a series that we're continuing and that we're really excited to be doing, and kind of branching outside of the typical like full length novel work that Deep Vellum does most of the time. I am super pumped to be doing this again this year. Thank you so much to Riso Bar and to SMU Pollock Gallery and to Strange Powers Press and to Finn and May for being a part of this. Thank you to Lindsay King, Deep Vellum employee who does our development and is helping me through the technological aspect of this event with holding my hand every step of the way. And this is being recorded, so we will be posting the finished event after a little bit of tinkering on Facebook. It should be up, and on our website as well to link to YouTube. So I think that ties everything up.
Yeah, just to reiterate what we were saying before, or what's in the text, but you should check out our website, risobar.net, and it's a very cool website, I think, first of all. But also there's our things from our library are on there, and also things that we've made and just ways of getting in touch with us, because as I hope is clear, we're really interested in just collaborating with everyone and anyone and kind of making the most of this space and this machine. We want it to get a lot of use, and especially because right now we can't do workshops. Hopefully we will be able to open that up, but if you're in touch with us, that's where we'll be announcing things like that, and just hit us up.
Awesome. Yes, definitely. And if y'all are unable to hear properly, I will be typing out that website on our website to make sure everyone can have access to it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for attending, and thanks to the crew for participating in this conversation. I look forward to more conversations. But I really appreciate y'all and what y'all are doing in Dallas.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.